Listener-supported St. Gabriel Catholic Radio AM 820 brings you Family Sanctuary, a show that inspires living the gospel message in word and deed within our families. And now, Family Sanctuary with host Peggy Hartshorn.
Welcome to the Family Sanctuary, focusing on life-giving relationships and the family. I'm your host, Peggy Hartshorn, chairman of Heartbeat International, that advances life-affirming pregnancy help around the world. And today we have a very special guest and program for you that I think is quite powerful. We're going to focus on family and family relationships with our guest, Paul Mascia. Paul, welcome to the program.
Thank you.
I think I said
Peggy.
Mascia. The better pronunciation is Mascia, right?
Thank you.
So thank you for being with us. Paul is, he and his wife, Teresa, are members of St. Catherine's Parish. And Paul has a phenomenal personal story. Part of it we're going to focus in on today is how God has used his creative gifts, a very creative person, that actually you weren't able to pursue as much in your young years, Paul, right? Now that you've reached retirement age, God is really using those gifts that he placed in you and that your life experiences have developed through the years to help you actually write your first novel, your first historical novel, something that talent for writing was revealed way back when you were a student at Yale. And one of the professors said, you need to get this story published.
Yeah.
But life intervened. Well, you had a wonderful conversion experience too at Yale, I want to mention.
Yes.
Where having a personal relationship with the Lord really became important. And then life intervened, marriage, 5 children. You became a specialized insurance agent focusing on long-term care, and really it became a helping profession for you.
Yes.
But then when it was time for retirement, God moved you to use that creative gift. And I have in front of me your first historic novel, Nazar's Journey, which we're going to talk about today. As a former literature teacher, let me just say I really love this story. I think you've written a beautiful book. And so we'll be talking too about Nazar's Journey, the theme in it, so many beautiful themes, only one of which is family. But because that's the focus of our show, we're going to focus on that primarily today. So welcome to the program, Paul.
Thank you, Peggy.
Yeah, very nice to have you with me. And you and I met a little while ago when I actually did a pro-life presentation at
St. Catherine's.
At St. Catherine's, and thank you for being there. And we connected, and I'm just really thrilled with how God has used you to write this beautiful story. So, Paul, just tell us, because I bet the audience is thinking, all right, well, what is the story, Nazar's Journey? Tell us a little bit about the story itself, and maybe what led you to write a story. Let me just say, it's about Nazar, a young boy, just barely 14, correct?
Correct.
Yeah. His journey is a flight to safety, right?
Exactly.
Because the terrorists have taken over Mosul, and he and his family, and of course all the people in that area, regardless of their faith. He was a Christian, Nazar was, or
Yes.
is, I should say.
Right.
But everyone had to flee for safety. So imagine a 14-year-old boy on the Nineveh plains. So tell us just briefly how the story came about, and then how did you realize, and what did you realize about how it connected with your own story?
Well, first of all, Nazar is heroic in a quiet kind of way, not like the comic books. Okay,
He's not a superhero.
He's not a superhero. He has a certain quality about him which is selfless, perhaps unusual for a boy of that age. So I call him a young man because he's almost in transition to manhood. He's flawless. The young man is flawless, and I don't have any character defects in him. And what motivated me to write this story is, of course, I had originally written a story about the Vietnam War
When you were
when
at
I,
Yale.
when I was doing a paper for a psychology class, and they allowed me to write a children's story. So it was about a boy, and the professor really liked the story. This is going back to the era of the Vietnam War, so we're talking a long time ago.
So he was fleeing the Vietnam War.
It was a terrible situation. He was searching for his father, and there was a journey of sorts that they had to make. But in any event, that story was in the back of my mind. But more recently, over the last 10 years, because the episode that we're talking about in the book happened in 2014, so we're reaching the 10-year anniversary of that event. In June of 2014, Mosul fell. So I was really, oh my goodness, there were so many things that were happening. There were articles in the Columbia magazine, there were articles in the Register about the Islamic State and the persecution of Christians. And then there were items in the news about a genocide declaration that needed to happen because clearly these people were being targeted.
Villages were just being destroyed.
Right. And people,
for no reason.
People really, they were in their little villages. They had to escape. The only place they could escape to was Erbil, which was to the east. Mosul had fallen. So it was a very, very traumatic experience. They had to leave everything behind, not knowing whether they would be able to come back again.
So as you were reading these stories back in 2014, you were really moved by the plight, obviously, of Christians, but many others who had to flee their homes.
Yes, the Yazidis also were in big trouble, and there were the Shabak Muslims, and the majority of people who were fleeing were Muslim.
I think one of the notes in the story, I think, said there were over 1 million people.
Ultimately,
Correct.
There were over 1 million people, and at that time, it was a major displacement of people in terms of current world history. Now, in retrospect, we look back, we have the Ukraine war, we have the problem in the Middle East, we have the Sudan, we have other areas in the world where the displacement problems are in the millions. This was perhaps well over 1 million people, all gathered in the Erbil area. And the Christians really had to be cared for by the Archdiocese of Erbil.
Of Erbil. So the story obviously is based on real circumstances.
And also, I could mention one other thing. There was an interview on television with a Father Ben who talked about the N on the door, that the radicals, the Islamic radicals, painted the N on people's doors, and this was particularly in Mosul that this happened. The purpose of that was to target Christians, followers of the Nazarene, which is what the N was for.
And of course, your hero's name is Nazar.
Nazar. And that just leapt out at me, and I
Really
found it shocking and
powerful.
disturbing. But it was a deliberate targeting of Christians, if not to kill them, then to financially penalize them. So there was that story by this Father Ben, who knew Iraq very well, who now, of course, has turned out to be one of the fellows who did an endorsement for my book.
Oh, wonderful.
So
Isn't
anyway.
it amazing? All those things really touched you. God was moving you in this particular way, the plight of these Christians. And again, he had prepared you through the years with having great artistic abilities. I know not just in writing, but also music, which had not become your mission in life, your vocation in life, but he's allowing you now with those gifts to help evangelize in many ways.
Right.
And one of the things that I thought was interesting that you've told me about is that in your retirement, you and your wife really love to read the works of Benedict XVI.
Correct.
And one of the things that, in fact, I think I have a little maybe quote if I can find it here in front of me, it was powerful that Benedict, and let me just paraphrase it basically, in saying that Benedict said one of the great ways that God uses to evangelize people is beauty.
Yes.
Not the beauty of the word found in literature, music, which I know is an avocation of yours as well. Beauty of nature, God is present there.
Yes, Benedict said that there really are two major factors that draw people to the discovery of God. One is the life of the saints, their beauty, their moral dignity, and their heroic dignity and their holiness. And that is a big draw that people are so touched by a St. Francis or Mother Teresa. That is a draw. But the other element that he emphasized is beauty can draw people to God, or at least open doors to the discovery of God and his love.
Sure.
So the beauty of nature, the beauty of a painting. He was a piano player, Benedict XVI.
Yes, I remember, yeah.
So he was a musician and a very refined kind of cultural person. And I just love that whole concept. And I thought to myself, well, I really felt I could create something beautiful in writing and perhaps inspire others to do that kind of writing as well. That through beauty, planting the seeds of the new evangelization.
Sure. I love that. And as a former literature teacher, and a person who loves poetry and literature myself, I believe in that. And I love this. I really love your story. And I think there's so many powerful aspects of it. I really think because your hero is 14, this is a great book, not just for people like me, for adults who can learn so much more too about the plight of the Christians and think through and become really touched by the plight of people who are victims of religious persecution around the world, but also to help our young people. I think this is would be a great book for adolescent readers and homeschoolers.
It's a little bit like the way I saw it when I was writing it. I wanted to make it short, first of all, so that it wouldn't be daunting for someone to get through it. I wanted the writing to be simple, but not simplistic.
Sure.
And
you succeeded in that, by the way.
Thank you. I wanted a bit of poetry so that maybe there would be moments of reflection. But in the Narnia Chronicles, you have different layers going on. And in my story, an adolescent could read it and definitely get something special out of it, especially imitating the character of Nazar, his heroism, his courage. In fact, there's a 14-year-old who just read it, the son of a theologian. They read it together. And he told me what his son got out of it. Cool. And that's exactly what his son picked up, the courage and the love of Nazar.
Wow.
So there are different levels.
Sure.
But if you delve into it as an adult or as a devout Christian, you will see other themes in the book.
Yes.
Other meanings. Particularly, of course, in this presentation, we're talking about the Father and the Father's love.
Yes. That's our title.
Yes.
The story of the Father's love. Let me just reintroduce our guest because we're about halfway through the program. And if you didn't get the introduction at first, I want you to know that our guest is Paul Mascia. He and his wife, Teresa, are members of St. Catherine's Parish. And Paul's here to talk about his connection, his personal connection, actually, in his family with the story of Nazar and his new book, Nazar's Journey. And I highly recommend it. It's just a beautiful, beautiful story. We're talking about the depths of theme in the story. You can certainly order this book from Barnes & Noble or Amazon, but it's also available locally now in the Book Loft, Gramercy, which is in Bexley, and Generations, the Catholic bookstore. So So Nazar's journey, Paul, let's get into, because we did title our program Story of the Father's Love. Let's get into the theme of family here and how it relates to your own family. I know that you've dedicated the book to your own father.
Yes.
So as you and I talked at first, I said, well, now the focus of the Family Sanctuary is on the family. So of all the themes and great themes in this story, let's talk about the theme of the Father's love and how that relates to your personal story.
Well, I grew up in a medical family.
Mm-hmm.
My father being a doctor, a family practice doctor in the old days where they used to fix broken bones and deliver babies and do
minor
house
operations
visits,
and
everything.
Yeah, right.
And my mother was an RN, and they met in the church choir.
Mm-hmm.
My dad lived to about almost age 101. My
Wow.
mother lived to age 97. So there is longevity in the family, and that's another reason, by the way, that I wanted to come up with a good solution for this semi-retirement period of my life.
You figured you'd have some years.
I didn't want to presume, but the genes are apparently very good.
Good.
But anyway, the medical dimension of the family is very significant because my father was not materialistic. He was not one for fancy cars and showing off. And in fact, if you ask my kids, they'll talk about the cars that he still hung on to.
The old cars.
The old cars. But he was very, very patient oriented, and the waiting room in his office was always loaded with patients. And his sister, my aunt, was the jack of all trades at the office. She did everything. And when people would come into the office, she'd give the children pieces of paper where they could, drew their drawings with crayons. And she was also very creative person, but she decided not to have gray file cabinets in the doctor's office. So one Saturday she brought her oil paints, and painted over all the gray filing cabinets with sun and moon and stars and beautiful things. But that was the kind of environment of that doctor's office. But also the other thing about my father is he was involved with World War II as a medic. And he always talked about, during World War II, the loss of life.
The plight of those involved in war.
And how the war depletes the talent of young people. And the planet is impoverished because of all these early young deaths.
So let me just, I'm not giving away anything about the plot here, but
right.
The importance of your relationship with your father. I mean, as we started talking about the theme of family, you and I together here, you realized how much your father had really impacted the story in some ways, and you dedicated the story to him. But Nazar is on a search for his father,
right?
Correct?
Yes, and the difference is significant because Baba in the story is Nazar's father, who is technically throughout the entire story not seen. We don't see him in the story. He is invisible, similar to God the Father, but he is tangible. I won't give away the ending, but he is someone who touches Nazar, and so Nazar experiences his love, even though Baba is invisible. And the love is deep and profound, and it's a very emotional experience.
And Nazar's hope throughout the journey is to find the Father. To
find the Father, and yet the question mark is, who's looking for who? Is the Father looking for Nazar? Or is Nazar looking for his father, or both? And what I have in mind there is the scripture that says, God has loved us first. So the Father is searching for his Son. And he's taking the initiative, really.
Yeah. And that's such a powerful theme. Absolutely.
And if anybody was to ask me, what do I want people to take away from this book? it's that openness to the discovery of God's love as a father, which is the priceless gift that Jesus has paid the price for through his suffering, death, and resurrection. He has given us this intimacy of this relationship with God the Father and his love.
Mm-hmm. And the love between the natural family is very powerful in the story. Of course, leading and coming from the Father's love, because love comes from God.
Yes.
God is the source of all the love. So there's another little family in the story. One of your reviewers even said it seemed to connect to the Holy Family.
Yes.
Because there's a character named Yusuf. Is that how you would pronounce it on the Nineveh Plains? Yusuf.
Yeah. Yusuf.
And Amira, who could be a Mary figure, of course. And then they end up traveling with Nazar. I don't think I'm giving away too much here in the plot.
Not at all.
So you've kind of got this little holy family as well in the story, which, as you say, for young people, they're not going to pick up all these themes.
Right.
But it's wonderful to be able to help a young person. I love the fact of the father reading the story with his son and helping see all these beautiful ways that you're focusing on the strength of the family and the hope that the family has. And despite all the disasters that they're experiencing, which is the trauma, not just of the fall of Mosul, but of traveling, without fresh water, without food,
right,
with disasters along the way, seeing villages that have been destroyed. One of the touching parts of the story, I think, was when Nazar goes into the church where he received his first Holy Communion, which is on the way on his journey, and the desecration of that church, because that village had already been attacked, by the terrorists. But tell us about that scene, which I believe you said later a statue that you described as having been desecrated in the church later was in reality put together.
Yes.
Is that correct?
The statue is a pivotal scene in the story,
Mm-hmm.
and Mary, by the way, is a pivotal character. Mary,
yes.
the
And this
mother.
was a statue of Mary that was desecrated.
Absolutely. And Mary was also an important figure for Nazar because he had lost his own mother due to an illness
Mm-hmm.
when he was younger.
Mm-hmm.
So this statue was very, very important to him emotionally.
Mm-hmm.
As it turns out, I did not know this when I was crafting the story, but later on, this statue was, in fact, put back together again and used in the stadium when Pope Francis came to Iraq to visit Iraq. And the statue of the village of Karamlesh became the symbol of the restoration of the Christian population of Iraq. That statue.
Mm-hmm. You didn't even know about it. When you wrote the story.
I had shivers down my spine.
Yeah. So there are so many little details like that you've told me about the story that it's just clear that God not only inspired the story, how he prepared you in all of your life experiences to come to a point where you could write this story. Just amazing.
Yeah. And also the other comment I want to make is about the skylark.
Yes.
The skylark really symbolizes many things, but above all, the skylark symbolizes the fact that God is with us, even in the most traumatic and difficult moments of life, that God is with us. And the skylark shows up at different points to provide encouragement and consolation. Mm-hmm. And to give the strength to go on, to move forward.
And it's another example of how the beauty of God's creation, the beauty of that bird, the beauty of his song, is something that gives people hope.
Absolutely.
And I know, and one other connection here with our diocese here is the beautiful scene in which the characters are looking up at the stars.
Oh, yes.
That has a connection right here with
That
Columbus.
is amazing. I went to Compline one night at the cathedral, and they usually make it very dark. They have a few candles lit. And the psalm that's always used at Compline is Psalm 91. the words in the refrain are, "He will conceal you in his wings. You will not fear the terror of the night." And I was there, and all of a sudden, this image of this scene under the stars kind of flashed in my imagination. And Amira and Nazar looking up at the stars. And later on, by the way, I found out that the Chaldeans are known to be stargazers.
Wow.
Bishop Barron talked about the Chaldeans being stargazers on the Feast of the Epiphany. So in any event, the point of that scene is that Nazar questions whether God is good after all the suffering that they've been through. And Amira almost has a mystical perception of the beauty of creation, but she sees beyond it, like a St. Francis. And she sees the beauty of creation. She says, no, the beauty is inescapable. So is God's love inescapable.
Mm-hmm. And so leading us back to the inspiration from Benedict XVI for you and your wife as well.
Yes.
So much of the story, as we've unpacked it, you and I together, we've had several phone calls about this, is so connected to your personal experience. And it's just such an example to me and your family experiences of how God uses everything in our lives and in our backgrounds. And nothing is a coincidence.
Yes.
It's all a beautiful tapestry that he's blending together.
And if he gives us a desire to do something, we really should discern it to see if it's God calling us.
And thank you for doing that. And your beautiful story, Nazar's Journey, as we've mentioned, is available locally at the Book Loft, at Grand Merci, at Generations. You can order it from Barnes & Noble or Amazon. And
it's a charitable work. The proceeds are going to the aid to the church in need.
Oh, that's right. Wonderful. That's beautiful, Paul. Thank you for your beautiful story, for writing this beautiful book, saying yes to God. Thanks for sharing on the Family Sanctuary.
Thank you, Peggy.
And you're listening to the Family Sanctuary on St. Gabriel Catholic Radio, and I'm your host, Peggy Hartshorn. To find this program again, which is called Story of the Father's Love, just go to stgabrielradio.com, choose podcasts, and then the Family Sanctuary. Family Sanctuary is broadcast at 4 o'clock on Saturdays and 2 o'clock on Sundays right here on St. Gabriel Catholic Radio. So please join us again to strengthen our families and make them sanctuaries of life as God intends.
Family Sanctuary is a production of listener-supported St. Gabriel Catholic Radio, AM 820. Archives of Family Sanctuary with Peggy Hartshorn are available at stgabrielradio.com.